Hello and welcome to a very hot Di and Joe doing the Unstuck Club. We are both in heat waves. We
Yeah.
are both in heat waves. I have just come in from the rain. I looked at my watch, Di. I was like, the responsible thing is to not go stand in the rain right now. But I was standing in the rain going, I actually have to absorb the rain because the heat, I can't explain. Like I deserve the rain after the amount of heat we get.
Okay, so I have a question. Like, why wouldn't it be the sensible thing to stand in the rain? It's
So
just
for me-
water.
So for me it is. For me it is, and I think I love the timing of this because I am a stand in the rain. I mean, I remember when I was little. I don't know if my sister watches my podcasts or not, but I remember when my nephews were little, the bigger twin nephews, and my sister was like, "Don't teach them that," and we were in the rain. It was like,
Just
yeah, I'm a stand in the rain. I'm a stand in the rain person.
I think that we've moved away from really just being in those spontaneous moments. When we lived on the farm, and I mean, we didn't have, I mean, our closest neighbors were like 3 Ks away. And I'd had this thing, I mean, I was a good probably 15 years younger than I am now. And I had this thing that I wanted to stand naked in the rain. And John went off to Joburg because he used to go overnight on business. And it was about 6 in the morning. And there was this beautiful, humid, soft rain falling. And I was like, you can do this now. And I took my gown off and I went to the back door and I was like, and then I went out into the garden, and it was so beautiful and so liberating, and I've never forgotten it. The feel of the rain on my skin and just absolutely being in that moment. And I experienced it again this week, not this week, last week, when I went off for my chiropractor's appointment, and she lives on an estate here. And the client before, and I did do a reel on it actually, the client before me was running over time, and I was just sitting on the bench, and I was watching this enormous tree swaying with the wind because it was quite breezy, and becoming totally engrossed in just how effortlessly this tree moved. Wherever the wind took the branches, I got completely lost in the moment. And I know it's something that you want to talk about today, but just doing nothing except watching a tree blowing in the wind. It was one of the most peaceful things that I'd experienced for a really long time.
And I believe it's so important. I really believe it's so important. And, I know that in South Africa, we kind of shut down, like on this, we've got our public holiday now, which is on the 16th, and everything shuts down. A lot of businesses do. And then I speak to my friends who are in the UK and in the US, and they're like, we don't have that at all. So there's no shutting down. There's Christmas Day, there's the next day, there's New Year's Day. So I know we aren't all in the same mindset at the moment. But we actually don't grab the opportunities when we can just do nothing. We don't grab the opportunities when we can do nothing. And I think, Di, there's two different pockets of this, because the one is that beautiful, what you're saying, and I love doing that. Like, I still cloud watch. I think I posted not so long ago. I still cloud watch. I I sometimes, someone will just find me lying outside under a tree. I used to actually post a lot of that, and literally it just used to say, current view. And the current view was the tree that I'm staring at in the clouds. When I was little, I used to count cars.
Okay.
And just watch the cars go by. And there's this almost like this stigma to just doing that. Never mind the stigma to taking a day, whether it's the day after Christmas or New Year's Day or whatever day it is, and not making all the crazy plans. Not making that the day. And I know I've got a client of mine who's going to listen and go, she's speaking about me. Like, it doesn't have to be the day that you unpack and sort out the garage.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that day, but we have been programmed to be busy. We have been programmed that if we're not doing stuff and proving that we're doing stuff, then what we want isn't going to come to us, which is the opposite of how attracting what you want actually works.
Yeah. I think that, every year, this time of year fascinates me because it becomes this frenzy of parties and year-end events, and we must get together, and I'm like, well, you have 11 other months in which to get together. And it does. This time of year can put a lot of pressure on people, not just physically and emotionally, but financially.
Yeah.
And I think even more so this year. And I often wonder if that's not the reason why when the new year starts, it's almost like people are like this magic wand will be waved, and on the 1st or the 2nd of January, like it's all going to feel different. But you're so depleted by then from everything, year-end school, I know that overseas a lot of them, it's not their year end, but in South Africa it's the end of the school year, it's graduations, it's matrics and everything else. It's so pressured, and it should be the time when you can do a little bit of an exhale and go, I am just going to sit. I love cloud watching. These little free things that we do, and I've had more than one person say to me recently they wanted to chat to me about meditation because they struggle to meditate. Why? Because they can't switch their mind off. Well, when you do something like watch a tree rustling in the wind, or watching clouds are beautiful to just, they change and their shapes change. Like, find something that distracts the mind, but it's I don't know how to put it. I don't know. But it's mindless, but it's not mindless because it's giving the mind something to focus on. Oh, there's a crocodile. There's a fairy. Look, that looks like Father Christmas riding a hippopotamus kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need to get unstuck from this, even through the festive holiday season, Christmas, whatever you want to call it. We have to be busy.
It's, what I'm trying to really get people to understand is that listening to your mind is really not a good idea. Because when you listen to the mind comes along with the whole history of who you are. This whole, I did a tarot reading, and I'm not sharing anything that was in the tarot reading. But one of the statements, and I hear so often, one of the statements from my client was, I've realized that I do that because I'm trying to prove something that was perceived of me when I was younger. There's so much of that. Our ego mind is always trying to get approval the whole time. So sometimes when I suggest do nothing, I'll get statements like, oh no, I feel it's invigorating me for me to unpack the garage on the day after Christmas. I'm like, that's maybe what the mind is saying, but what does your body need? And there is not one human being whose physical and emotional bodies do not need downtime and aimlessness for the mind. And I was chatting with a friend of mine, and she literally said to me, I don't meditate because it's frustrating because I can't stop my mind. No one can stop it.
Yeah, that's the biggest myth.
Completely. Where people say I go into absolute stillness, when they go into absolute stillness, what they're doing is I can focus on my breath. I can absolutely focus on my breath, but I'm focusing on my breath, and that is my absolute stillness. But my mind can pay attention to me breathing out and breathing in, but it's still focusing on something, and then eventually it falls into such a rhythm that you can kind of fall into like a stillness, but it will still be where the mind is doing something. The mind is always doing something. And it is in giving ourselves permission. And the reason why it's so important, why are we talking about this in the Unstuck Club, right? We're talking about this here because 50% of manifestation, which is now becoming my least favorite word, right? But 50% of manifestation is your effort, and the other 50% is getting out of the way so that life can do what it's got to do. You know, when people say to me, it hasn't materialized, I'm like, well, have you stopped tinkering with what you want? Like, do something else, but don't do something else that is the doing, because you're never in the being. And if you don't get into the being, then you never give life the opportunity to do its 50%. And then we're just in control.
And that's this thing about meditation and the mind. Sam Harris, who does all these free courses around meditation, he says, the thing is, you don't get engaged with a thought. I mean, I sit here in the mornings after I've walked the dogs, and I do 20 minutes now. And sometimes I put white noise on just to cut out distractions. But my mind goes, oh my God, the stuff it comes up with. And then I find myself following it, and then I go, no. And I'm back again, like you, to the breath. But he said, you can do things like, I wonder where that thought came from, and where do thoughts go? Because you're then giving your mind something. But I think the people get frustrated because they want to be in this zone, and even the most seasoned meditators seldom get to that zone unless it's years and years of practice. And of course, the moment you think, I'm in the zone, you're out of it, because now you've had a thought. But I think that we've got really stuck in being really hard on ourselves, because just like you've said, we think, oh, I'm going to focus on manifesting this. Why hasn't it manifested yet? I've been saying the affirmations, and I've done my vision board, and it's like, it's not working. Well, look at this, just doing that, your state of being isn't in that space of like, this is how I want to feel. A friend of mine put it so beautifully on Saturday. We had lunch, and she is due to have a very large payout from the road accident fund, which has been going on for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And she said, what I do is, she says, I sit and I feel what it's going to feel like when I open that email to say, here is the release, sign it for whatever the amount. She says, I sit in that feeling of excitement and what I'm going to do. She said, that's what I focus on, not complaining about the fund or the people who manage the fund or the attorneys. I just sit in how I will feel that feeling. That's what works for her. But I think you're right. I think we are really stuck on being very hard on ourselves, even at a time of year when we should be slowing down. It feels like everything ramps up. And I think as each year passes, people get more and more disillusioned with this time of year because it doesn't bring them what they're hoping for.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely. And, it even extends into, you don't always have to be reading the self-help book. You can actually read a novel that doesn't teach you what you think it's going to teach. Some of the most beautiful lessons you will ever learn in your life come from a beautiful novel.
Yeah.
Just come from a beautiful book. You don't have to always be listening to the podcast that is some guru trying to teach you something. You can find, a storytelling podcast, a murder mystery podcast. I at this time of year, I watch all the cheesy romantic Christmas movies, all those where we know exactly it's going to be the small little town. The city girl comes from the small little town. She goes back to the small little town. She meets someone. They knew each other. I know the whole plot. We all know the whole plot. But it's because it just allows you to have a whole different sensory experience. And that is such an important part of unstucking yourself in this constant routine. Your mind is in the constant routine. It's in this constant routine of, I mustn't fail. I must succeed. I must push on. I must drive myself. And it's so fear-based. It's very, very fear-based. And I know we're going to have people who are listening and are going to go, I'm motivated. I'm determined. How dare you tell me it's fear-based? And I'm going to say, with all the love that I have, if we do not have the capacity to completely flip the story for ourselves and absolutely watch the series that's kind of pointless and watch the movie that's aimless and read the book that doesn't teach you any kind of, then if you don't have the capacity to do that and you are always in overdrive and you can't sit on the couch, do nothing, listen to music, just take it in, it's fear-based responses.
And you know what, as you're talking and saying all of this, the one thing that keeps coming up is we've lost the art of playing. Everything has to have a purpose or it has to have a goal. And yet you always have, they say you cannot have grief if you haven't had love. You don't know, you won't really understand joy unless you've had deep sadness. And I think it's the same thing, and I think it's also that 80-20 principle. Yes, absolutely. 80% of the time we do our morning routines. I know as much as I diss the 5 a.m. club, my day does run smoother when I wake up, when I get up, when I wake up naturally, which in the summer months is very early. My day runs smoother if I get up, if I do my journaling, if I do my 20 minutes of meditation, walk the dogs. I don't want that to become a chore or a I must. And maybe that's an age thing for me and for someone who's much younger, who's just going out into the world to develop those kinds of disciplines. Great. But, it's the same as any good eating plan or diet. Most of them will say you need a cheat day. It's human nature. You need a day where you have the pizza, you drink the milkshake, you eat the chocolate. Not every day, but we have to counteract it. And I think that's where we've got a bit lost, especially at this time of year. And I know overseas they don't have these long summer holidays, but they do. Most of them, like Christmas Eve to just after New Year, a lot of places close down.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one of the most daring things I think John and I ever did was when we were in the UK one New Year's Day. We'd been out very late with friends. We didn't get up until 5 p.m. It felt so decadent. It's so lovely. We read, he got up and made breakfast, came back to bed, we watched a bit of TV. I mean, it was also the middle of winter, but it just felt so naughty. It's like going to movies in the middle of the week. You feel like you're playing truant.
Yeah.
But it's just ease up on yourself. Just
completely
get unstuck from all of this. I must do this today. This is what I need to do. It's like, just stop and ask yourself, what do I really want to do? And maybe, your soul will say, go and sit on a bench and watch a tree blowing in the wind.
Completely. My big sister, who I'm currently with, she does not have the capacity to sit still, right? And every single year, I pick a day and I say to her, we are going to the shops the next day. So we either do it on the 16th when she doesn't have any clients, or we do it on Christmas Day when she doesn't have any clients. So I'll say we're going to go to the shops the day before and we're going to get everything we need, and we don't have to get up for anything, and we're not going to leave the house. It's never happened. It's never happened. Di, I love her. I'm going to tell her that I told the story on the podcast. Never happened. There is this, and I know she's a single mom. She's raising two, she's got her own business. She's raising two boys on her own. Both of them in their own special, beautiful way have really needed a lot of care and love and attention. And the thought of doing nothing for her must feel like she is not showing up in the capacity of how she needs to show up. So I'm saying it with empathy. I'm not, you and I always do this with empathy. We're not saying pull yourself together, sit on the couch and stare at the tree. We're saying you deserve it. You actually do deserve it. And everything will be okay if you do it. And actually, when you step out of your own way, then something magical could come along. Something a little magical could come along if you just allow yourself.
Allow. That's a beautiful word. It's one of my favorite words. Is not I must or I should or I could. It's I allow. I'm allowing myself. And it also, I think one of the reasons that we don't play enough is because we go, I don't have an hour or half an hour. My experience with the tree was maybe 10 minutes.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be this huge chunk of time, because the moment you try and create something like that, it just becomes more stress. Like, where am I going to fit in this play thing? It's like, I don't know how to do this. Like, just take, like if you've got a cup of tea or a drink, instead of sitting with your cup in one hand and your phone in the other, just be in the space that you are. I sometimes look around my house if I'm sitting in the lounge and I go, I really love the space I live in. It's so beautiful. It's so light. It's so this. And I'm like, gosh, I didn't really notice this about it or that about it, because I didn't stop.
My nephews plastered this house with googly eyes. That's one thing. The other thing is how long it took my sister and myself to notice.
Oh, really?
It took a while. And then when we noticed, they were just everywhere.
Everywhere.
And there were a couple that were like in our face. There were a couple that were in our face. So I talk about my capacity to be really, really mindful, but I did not see those googly eyes for like a good couple of weeks.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't days. It was a good couple of weeks because they were very chuffed with themselves. They were very chuffed with themselves and how long it took. And then it was very entertaining for them. They were like, it's literally my sister was screaming, get them off! They were on the windows, they were on the door frames, they were everywhere. They were just googly eyes.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and we didn't notice. And what you're saying is so beautiful, Dar, because you can be in the same space. People live in their space. And I'm telling you, if you just stopped and had to look around, you'd actually go, I forgot that was there, or I haven't noticed that in so long. We're not asking for big things. We're not suggesting big things. For the glass of, if you drink the bubbly or whatever you drink to celebrate the new year or see the new year in, and actually watch whatever's filling the glass instead of focusing on what is 2025 going to look like.
Yeah.
It's actually, we're suggesting really gentle, simple things. And I think between you and I, we're not suggesting traditional meditation.
No.
We're suggesting moments. We're actually suggesting like beautiful, beautiful moments. And get yourself unstuck and do something that you don't usually do. Do something different, which is also so important. Like, just do something different.
And also, I think, thinking of the conversations I've had with people around meditation, like, not everyone is wired to sit on a chair. There is this sort of image, cross-legged, hands and sitting on a cushion or a chair. Not everyone's made like that. So, if somebody is passionate about gardening or cooking, you can lose yourself in that moment. And that is in itself a form of meditation. But it is being completely focused on the shape of the carrot, the color of the carrot, the size of the carrot, how the knife moves. I'm guilty of it. If I'm in the kitchen, I've got my headphones on and I'm listening to a podcast, which is, it's okay, because it's a time when I can listen, but I'm not being really present. I'm filling the time that I think is doing mundane tasks. So I'm guilty of it, but I will make time. I remember, and I can't remember who it was, I think it's in the film about the minimalists, and they met a guy who says that in his diary, he makes time every day to just sit for 15 to 20 minutes and do nothing. He just sits. And he says what he found is, he said initially it's a struggle. You keep going, oh my gosh, this is the longest 20 minutes ever. But then he said what he noticed, because he just let everything come. He let the thoughts come. He didn't engage with them. And he said after time, he had some of his greatest creative inspirations from those 20 minutes. And I think we've become very impatient, and I think it is, on your phone, if something doesn't load quickly enough, it's like, get out of that website, go to the next one, maybe that will be faster. If a video is longer than a minute, oh no, I don't have the time to watch that. You've got time to scroll for 25 minutes. So I think it does feel like everything has sped up. And I think my wish for people, because this is our last podcast, not the last podcast, but the last podcast 2024, I think my wish is that people go into the next year slower and in a more gentle way. Don't hurtle into it going like, this is my year. You see this is my year. I'm going to make it happen. And then at the end of the year, it's like, well, can this year be over already? Like, I just feel like we have to slow right down and see what the year brings for us, because I mean, it is a 9 universal year. It is the year of endings. And I'm pretty sure that at least some of them listening to this, there will be things that already they're going like, I can't do this anymore. This needs to go. I need to change. I need to shift. It's already happening. I know it's happening for me, so I'm pretty sure it's happening for others as well.
Completely. I love that. I think that that's such a beautiful way to end. And I love this for you and I, because I'm arriving at you, and we have not said, okay, because we're together, we've got to make plans for next year. We've got to make sure we do a podcast. We've actually said the complete opposite. We've said we have two play dates so far.
Yeah.
Right? 2 play dates so far. Have we got another one?
Well, I must tell you that Love Actually is playing at our little cinema next Friday.
Book it, darling, book it.
So I thought we could go. It's also, I love that movie. I've watched it like a gazillion times.
Me too.
We can go and see it on the big screen. But yeah. So that's
we just, yes, thank you. I'm so excited. And we just want everyone who's listening just to absorb some of this. And we just want to, if you can't give yourself permission, just know that we're giving you permission to just do nothing for a little moment in time.
Yes.
And with that, we're going to see everyone in 2025.
We are, and whether you're at home or if you're traveling, just be safe.
Yeah.
As Joe always says, be kind to each other. And whatever's going on, this too will pass.
Completely. And thank you for such a beautiful year. It's been so lovely.
It's been
amazing. So we'll see you next year.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.